Howdy and welcome back. We're here with our third background NPC for the day. I told you we were behind. We need more men like Arthur Morrigan. I've never played Red Dead games. I do have two from the winter sale, and I've not played it yet. We'll get there eventually. That's in my graveyard of I want to play it someday. I don't know when. Probably when I have a better computer to actually play it on because it's on Steam, and I don't know if it's going to be able to handle it. But we're going to find out what she means by we need more men like Arthur Morgan. Again, this is background NPC. We know her. We love her. What an absolute delight. Let's get right into what she has to say.
I tried.
Tried what?
In the end, I did.
You just died.
You all I had.
I've still
Well,
yet
that's
to
unfortunate.
experience a game that's hit me quite like Red Dead Redemption.
Did you play Final
And
Fantasy X? Did you try that?
At this point, I've probably watched Arthur's death scene a dozen times, and it still gets me. Every time. Here is
Aw.
a dying man.
It's great when a game can just like affect you that much. Where like you play a game and it just sticks with you after you're done. Like a game where you're just enjoying it so much, you don't want it to end. You don't want to finish the game. You just want to hold on to it forever. And then when you do finish it, it sticks with you for a very, very long time.
Alone on a mountainside, watching the sun rise over a world that never wanted him. His lungs are failing, his family has abandoned him, and everything that he's ever known is crumbling around him. But for the first time in his life, Arthur Morgan is at peace. And it makes you wonder,
At peace because he knows it's over, I assume. And there's a certain peace that comes with life being terrible and just knowing, well, that's, at least it's done. It's done. I mean, it's sad. It's a sad peace, but like, at least he found it before he passed away. Most of us never get to feel that.
how did we get here? How did this man, this outlaw who spent most of his life harming and taking from others, become someone whose death feels like the most heroic thing he could have done? Arthur's story is not about a hero who falls from grace. It's not about a life of good deeds or storybook justice. It's about a man who never thought he was worth anything, slowly discovering that maybe he was wrong about himself all along. Arthur
I think we're all wrong about ourselves. Like, we undervalue ourselves greatly, and the more we do that, anytime someone tries to tell us, no, you're better than that, you have this quality and this quality, you just don't listen or believe them because you spent so long telling yourself you're not worth that. That one person is basically just screaming into the void, and you can't even hear them because of all the echoes of what you're telling yourself. It takes a lot more than that to change your mind, but it's nice that they tried. If you have someone like that who's willing to sit you down and tell you that stuff, maybe you should stop yelling at yourself and let their voice echo. Let their voice cut through at least once and try to see it from their side.
Morgan didn't just become my favorite gaming protagonist because he's brilliantly written or ruggedly handsome, though. Let's be honest, they're true. He became my favorite because he showed me something so rare in games, what quiet, everyday heroism actually looks like.
The ones that get overlooked by the rest of society, just like constantly. There are people who go about their lives making the world run, or even just in a small town, one person making other people smile or doing nice things, and they will not be remembered as fondly as they absolutely should be, because the few people who will remember them fondly, they'll eventually pass away, but they also probably won't tell the story of that one person who like paid for their groceries when they were short on money or something like that. They'll tell like one person and then forget about it in a couple weeks because life moves fast. But there are good people who will absolutely be forgotten, and that's really sad.
Heroism that's messy, costly, and earned through struggle. And if you've been here for a little bit now, you already know that I care about stories that matter, characters with depth, and games that really understand what it is that they're trying to say. Arthur's story is about transformation, yes, but It's really about what happens when a man finally starts living by his choices instead of by his circumstances. When I think about male characters in gaming, there are very few that come to mind that have had an impact on me like Arthur Morgan. The phrase, they just
Yeah, I feel like we've all had that kind of character. A character that really resonated with us long after you thought they were going to. It just kind of surprised you. Honestly, there could be like a lot of characters for me. I'd have to like sit and think about like how deeply that is, but probably Final Fantasy X. I think that whole game is just, it's such a deeper meaning than a lot of people are going to understand it as, and that's why, well, every time I've watched someone play through Final Fantasy X, when they get to the end, every last one of them cries because by the end, they just want Yuna to be happy, and she's not going to get to be happy. She spent her whole life training to become basically a sacrifice, knowing she was going to give her life for the greater good of Spira. And then when the time comes, she realizes what else it will cost, and that she can't make that decision, and she can't ask anyone she loves to join her because she's fine sacrificing herself, and she wants her friends to back her up and to support her in being able to make the decision, but she also will not in return support them in making the decision to join her in that sacrifice. And then there's a twist that I don't want to give away, but basically, she doesn't have to kill herself to accomplish the mission now, but she does have to give something up that she cares about, even though she doesn't know that's what she has to do until the time comes because it's kept from her. And then she can't even be mad about it because she keeps that from the main character, what she has to do. So she's on this road of heartache no matter what happens. Like even if you can escape one, that means another one. And her life is just sadness and never getting what she wants. And it's really unfortunate because she's such a kind, sweet, caring person, but she will never get to be happy. It's really upsetting, and there's a lot of people out there in the real world who are like that, who are kind, caring people, who will just be stuck unhappy in their situations for a very long time, if not the rest of their life, and they deserve better.
just don't make them like they used to perfectly encapsulates how I feel about his entire story and purpose as a character. But here's what makes Arthur different from so many other heroes that we see in games. He's not a chosen one. He doesn't have a destiny written in prophecy or supernatural powers that make him special. Arthur's heroism is completely accessible to all of us. It's built from daily choices, from deciding to show up when you don't have to, and from choosing to be better than
Very
you
true,
were
Bear.
yesterday. Arthur's story shows us a lot about what makes a real hero, what makes everyday actions authentic and meaningful versus
Now, even though I've never played this game, I do know that Arthur dies at the end. And one day I will play Red Dead Redemption 2, and if I like it, I'll play Red Dead Redemption 1. Because I already own 2. And if, I don't know, maybe if one goes on sale for like enough, I'll play that too. I'll buy it. I don't know what order I'll play them in, but I would like to play them because like I've heard phenomenal things about these games, and I like to experience them for myself. But I do already know what happens in both games.
performative, and his journey reveals that it isn't about grand gestures, taking up the spotlight, or perfect people making perfect choices. It's about making intentional and helpful decisions that serve others, making small changes to be better even when no one is watching, and even when you think it might be too late for you. So, if you haven't already guessed, fair warning, we're gonna get a little bit deep talking about this cowboy. Buckle up. To truly understand Arthur's transformation,
Buckle up, buckaroos. We're getting into it.
you have to start with who he was before he started to change. When you really look at his origins, it's so heartbreaking how almost inevitable this path seemed. Arthur was orphaned at a very young age. He had no parents to look up to or take care of him.
Always a
and
problem.
He was most likely a very traumatized, lonely child. When he was found by Dutch and Hosea, they didn't just give him a home, they gave him an entire worldview, a complete identity that Arthur never had the chance to question because it was all he knew. And what's so tragic about this is that Arthur never really had the chance to discover who he might have been.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. That's something new. I didn't know that he was orphaned and then taken in by them and raised by them. I thought he was just like his own person and then he joined the gang because he was already a criminal or something like that. I did not know that he was raised to be a criminal. That's okay. That's a lot. That makes a lot more sense. That's a lot deeper.
Had he been raised differently, he didn't just wake up one day and decide, I want to be an outlaw. That choice was made for him by the environment he essentially had no say in, by the only father figure he ever had. When the people who love you, who feed you, who protect you, tell you that this is who you are, this is your purpose, you believe them, because what else do you have? What else do you know? Fast forward through his years, and by the time we meet Arthur in 1899, he's not only fully bought into this worldview, it's been solidified down to his core. There's this line that he says early on in the game that just cuts right to the heart of how he sees himself in the gang.
We're thieves in a world that don't want us no more.
This isn't Arthur being defiant. It's him being resigned.
Well,
He's
no one.
accepted
The world
and
never
owned
wanted
that
you. You're
he's
thieves. That's. And it was never an option for them to want you. You steal from them. Why would they?
society's enemy, that there's no place for him in the civilized world, and he seems almost comfortable with that notion. And when you take a look at Arthur's journal entries from early in the game, it's clear just how deeply this identity has taken root. The way he writes about violence like it's normal or even a good thing. He justifies hurting people by telling himself that they probably deserved it, or that it was necessary for the gang's survival. There's a very cold
Why would you need to
detachment in his
justify
words.
it if you were
Underlying
raised to
everything
think
he
it was
says,
normal?
There's this constant thread that he is lost and damned, not as a cry for help, but as a simple statement about his life. You learn later in the game that Arthur's shame runs even deeper than just the gang violence. He was a father once to a boy named Isaac with a woman named Eliza, and he failed them both. Arthur chose the gang over his family, visiting only when it was convenient, occasionally sending money instead of showing up when they
that's
needed
nice.
him
They at
most.
least
When they
sent-
were
he
killed
sent
for
money.
the
He could've just
measly
disappeared
few
entirely.
dollars that they had, Arthur wasn't there to protect them. After you learn this, you see that failure haunts every page of his journal. It's a weight he carries that goes beyond just being an outlaw.
Oh, it would have been nice if instead of dying to lung tuberculosis, I think, he got to actually settle down with the family.
He was a man who abandoned his own child, and that child died because Arthur chose his loyalty to Dutch over his responsibility.
Oh,
as
the
a father.
child-
Arthur
oh,
carries
I guess
this
that's not an option
crushing
either.
weight of shame about his past, and is convinced that shame is just who he is now. He doesn't see it as something to overcome. He sees it as proof that he is too far gone for any type of change, for any type of good. He's done terrible things, hurt innocent people, and failed the people who needed him most. And in his mind, that's not something you can ever come back from. Reinforcing the identity.
Well, yeah, I guess if you weren't raised properly, you would see it that way. It's not necessarily true. Like, there's always a chance to come back unless they absolutely have given up on you. In which case, it's not really a you problem, that's a them problem. But there's always another way, basically.
Imposed on him since childhood. So this is where we start. Arthur Morgan is numb and adrift, defined entirely by cruel survival and blind loyalty to his makeshift family that raised him to be a terror. He's not some cartoonish villain. He's not a soulless monster that chose his own path. He's just a man. A man so empty and lost, hollowed out by years of violence and guilt, and convinced that this hollowed version of himself is all there is and all there ever will be. When Arthur begins to see the possibility that there might be more, he doesn't go from completely numb to transformed overnight. That's not how real change works, and it's definitely not how Rockstar tells his story. Instead,
Yeah.
what we get is
Rockstar is one of those companies that you can trust them when they make a game because they don't have a reason to lie to you because they're making the game properly. They know what they're doing. They know what the fans want, why people love their games, and they stay in their lane. That's why it's so impactful whenever they make it. That's why when GTA 6 comes out, it's going to shut down everything else. Anyone else who even releases the game within a month of this game is not going to do very well. It's not going to do very well at all. Because these people, they, dare I say, rock. Anyway, yeah, they know what they're doing, and they don't try to venture too far out of it, and they don't make it too, they don't cater to what's current and trending. They just stick with what they know, what they're good at, and they don't try to diverge from that too much, because it might ruin the quality of what they are doing well, trying to add something that they're not used to.
Beautiful, painful, slow awakening that happens through dozens of moments. Some small, some big, and some that you might not even notice if you're not paying close attention. And as we get into all of this, please keep in mind that my viewpoint is coming from someone who mostly played the game with mid to low honor, but started working towards high honor probably around the halfway point, and definitely by the time Arthur visits the doctor. I know everyone has their own preference of how they think it should be played, but I do think that this progression really helps you get the absolute most out of this game.
Okay, so we know to start with mid to low and then start working on our honor as we go for just theatrical reasons, to keep in tone with the actual story and progression of the
For
character.
me, it all really started with the different stranger encounters in the world. And I love these little pieces of storytelling in the game. You'll be riding along, minding your own business, and then suddenly there's this person who needs help. Maybe it's someone whose horse threw them, or a woman being harassed, or just someone in trouble. I also learned pretty early on that sometimes it's even a trap. Yeah, I got duped many times. But what's really cool is that Arthur gets to make a decision each time. He can ignore it and ride on by like the hardened outlaw he's supposed to be, or he can stop and help. The first few times you help someone, Arthur almost seems surprised by his own actions. Sometimes there are almost moments of confusion, like he's rediscovering parts of himself he thought long dead. You can almost see him even thinking, when did I care about strangers again? I remember the first time I saw that slight flicker of confusion cross his face after helping someone, and I just sat on my horse for a few moments after that. It was such a small thing, but it made me think about my own life. When was the last time I surprised myself by choosing kindness when I could have just walked away?
I feel like she chooses kindness a lot. There's no way you turn out like this, like someone like her, and you don't choose kindness frequently.
But it's not just the strangers who see glimpses of the man Arthur could be. Watch how he treats his horse. The way he pats their neck after a long ride, murmurs gentle
all
words
right,
when they're
girl.
spooked, makes sure that they're fed and rested before he even thinks about his own needs. There is something so telling about a man who can be ruthless with people, but infinitely patient with an animal that depends on him completely. You can even almost see Arthur thinking, at least I can do right by you. It's such a small thing, but it reveals everything. Here is this hardened outlaw who talks to his horse like a friend,
What's a horse's
who gets
core in this game?
genuinely upset if something happens to them. In a life where Arthur feels like he's failed everyone who's mattered, his horse becomes this one relationship where he can be purely good, purely protective, purely caring.
Yeah, it's almost like he could have done that with his child. I'm just saying. I feel maybe it's because he wishes it was his own child. Although pets do have a way of bringing that out in you. It's children aren't for everyone, but pets are for pretty much everyone. It could bring that parental instinct out. Maybe, although it feels like it might be a substitute for the child he wanted, but left behind.
A beautiful window into the man he's actually capable of being. Beyond the random encounters and the genuine compassion for his horse, the thing that's really front and center is his relationship with Dutch. Because as the game progresses, you start to notice these tiny cracks in the philosophy that Arthur's built his entire life around. Dutch gives these extremely fancy speeches about helping the poor and fighting the system and being better than the civilization that cast them out. But more and more, Arthur starts noticing that Dutch's grand plans seem to hurt the very people that they're supposed to be helping. The speeches start sounding empty, performative.
Huh. That kind of feels like parents. Huh. So it's the typical child-parent relationship where the child grows up and realizes the parent's not always right. The parent's not infallible. They don't know everything. That's very good. That's very good. I like that. Way to make a great game.
rather than principled. And Arthur begins asking those slippery slope questions. Not rebellious questions, not yet, but just, are we sure about this? Is this truly helping our family? Helping anyone? When you get to the Downs family debt collection, you see this perfect example of this internal war starting to surface. Arthur has been the debt collector for the group, and when his next job calls for him to intimidate this very sick man and his struggling family into paying money that they clearly don't have, something in him rebels against making their lives worse. He sees Thomas Downs coughing up blood, he sees the desperation in their eyes, and his conscience is at war with his duty. But what makes this scene so brutal to watch is Arthur doesn't just quietly feel bad about what he's doing. Arthur lashes out at them with a cruelty that's almost shocking. He's threatening them, and you start to realize what's happening here. It's this horrible psychological defense where he tries to silence his own guilt by being cruel to the people making him feel guilty. Like, if he can just be mean enough, loud enough, intimidating enough, maybe he can drown out that voice in his head that's telling him that this is wrong. He still collects what he can from the family, but you see it start to eat at him afterward, knowing that he didn't just hurt people who were already suffering, he was unnecessarily cruel to them because they dared to make him confront what kind of man he had become. And this encounter was, of course, so fateful for other reasons as well. If you read his journal during this period, you can see Arthur really start to wrestle with this view of himself in the game. It's not that they're just hurting innocent people, it's that half the time, they're not even helping the game. They're making enemies where they could have had allies, stirring up unnecessary trouble, causing all of this pain for what? Arthur's starting to realize that many of their actions aren't strategic, they're just plain vicious. He slowly begins to recognize that the life he's been living isn't even accomplishing what it was supposed to accomplish. He's been so loyal to the gang, so focused on following orders that he never stopped to ask whether or not those orders actually made sense.
It's important to always ask questions. Like, if you think you might upset somebody, don't. You need to be true to yourself, and you can't do that without asking questions and knowing that what you're doing is the right thing to do. Because if you suspect that it might not be, you need to get to the bottom of that before you end up doing something that you're going to regret down the line. If you're blindly following, it's easy to slip into something you thought you'd never do. And it's going to be real hard to forgive yourself if you do that.
Was hurting that sick farmer or terrorizing that struggling family really protecting his own family, or just hurting people for the sake of it? Then comes the moment that changes everything. The scene where Arthur receives his diagnosis, insanity. I won't lie, the first time I experienced this, I had to pause the game and just sit there in complete silence for a few minutes. Thankfully, Rockstar allows us to be with Arthur and process this for a minute, and you can see it in his face, the way that everything he thought he knew about his life suddenly feels very small. For the first time in years, Arthur can't hide behind being busy or useful. He has to sit alone with who he's been, who he is. And here's what's so special about his response. He doesn't deny it, he doesn't rage against it, he doesn't immediately start making bargains with God. Instead, he starts asking himself the question, if this is who I've been, what do I want to be with the time that I have left? What really gets me about this moment is how physical.
Isn't he already somewhere warm and dry? Is that not where he is right now? This immediately looks warm and dry.
Arthur's world literally
I was reading the thing and it told him to take it easy somewhere warm and dry. And it feels pretty daggone warm and dry. The West.
To shrink around him. He can't ride as far. He can't fight as hard. Can't do the things that once truly defined him. Yet somehow, as his body fails, his moral vision becomes clearer than it's ever been. It's like losing a part of his physical strength forces him to discover a kind of different strength entirely. Facing death strips away every excuse he's ever made. No more, I'll change someday, or when things settle down, or when death...
Yeah, facing the end of something has a way of doing that to you. You got a deadline. Always makes the work feel more dramatic, more drastic, more urgent. It's not a good time to wait to fix things. You should fix things immediately. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they make excuses to never have to get around to that any longer than they have to. Some people have a hard time hurting other people's feelings if that's going to be what's going to cause the change. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons, and a lot of different excuses for putting it off. But you eventually have to take care of it, or just stay miserable forever.
His plans finally work. Arthur realizes that someday just became never. He has now, maybe a few months if he's lucky. And that brutal clarity finally cracks his hardened exterior wide open. What follows is the most vulnerable we ever see Arthur Morgan. There's this moment where he seeks advice from Sister Calderon.
I'm afraid.
There is nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Morgan. Take a gamble that love exists and do a loving act.
Hearing this rugged, weathered man who's faced down entire games
God, he's so well
without
acted.
flinching,
I haven't
admit
even
his
played the
fear
game, but like that
hits
one
like a
line
punch to the
delivery, I
gut.
can tell.
And it's not because he's afraid of dying, but because he finally understands that time isn't infinite, that every choice from here on out is his last chance to matter. If you were playing for high honor at this point like me, watch how immediately his priorities shift. Gang schemes that once consumed his every thought suddenly feel trivial. Money matters so much less than moments. Those quiet conversations around camp, the way he truly starts listening when people talk, how he sees past his own survival to the lives he could still impact. John, Abigail, and Jack. Making sure they have a future becomes everything to Arthur. The tuberculosis doesn't make Arthur good. It just finally makes him honest with the people around him, but most importantly, himself. And sometimes that's exactly where heroism begins. So Arthur has had this awakening. He knows his time is limited, but knowing you need to change and actually changing are two very different things. In my opinion, Rockstar absolutely nails what this transformation looks like. Post-diagnosis, Arthur doesn't just question his choices. He actively works to make things right. And this is where we see the
That's the best advice anyone can give you right now. If you feel like you did something wrong, immediately fix that. Do not let it fester. Don't let it sit. It'll just get worse and much, much harder to fix later on. And if you feel like you absolutely just cannot fix it, there are people that you have wronged or situations that you've done that you just cannot see yourself going back and working through that. Try to do enough good in the world for other people to counter that. I mean, there's been people we've all hurt that no matter what we do, we're just not going to be able to fix that. If anything, maybe you're willing to apologize, but you're not sure if going back to them will open up the wound, and you don't know whether it's better to apologize to them or just not be selfish and bring it back up to them, because everyone's not the same, every situation is not the same, and you can't focus on feeling better about apologizing over the person you harmed and bringing them more harm if they're not willing to deal with it. That's a fine line to walk, and there's no right answer for that until you've actually done it and realize that you've picked the wrong choice. So try to move on and do good for the people you meet along the way in the future, in hopes that it will make the world better than the negativity you brought into it with that one situation.
most clear examples of what everyday heroism actually looks like. Remember the Downs family? The ones Arthur terrorized for debt money earlier on in the game. The dying farmer, Thomas, who was coughing up blood. Ultimately, the reason Arthur himself is dying. After Arthur gets his diagnosis, he does something so powerful. He seeks them out, not for the gang or because Dutch told him to, but because he wants to make it right. He finds Edith Downs and her son Archie struggling to survive, and he gives them the money that they need to start over. He helps them escape to a better life, knowing full well he'll never see a penny returned, and that Dutch would be so furious if he knew. What makes this even more impactful is understanding what this choice costs Arthur. He is using his limited time, his dwindling energy, risking Dutch's wrath, all to undo damage he caused when he was a very different
Oh,
man.
that's a very
Every
sweet
mile he-
conversation. I was reading that. I was not listening to her. I was reading that conversation. He did. That was very well handled. Holy crap, that was super written. Like, he didn't want thanks. He absolutely refused to accept the thanks. The guy's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna thank you." He's like, "I don't want your thanks. I just want you to take the money." He's like, "I don't want the money." He's like, "You don't. I know you don't want the money, but you need the money. You need to take it and get out of here." And the dude finally thanks him. He's like, "I told you I don't want your thanks. Just pack your bags and get out." you don't get killed for pride. I've seen it kill. That was a great way to handle that. Like, he will not accept thanks because he truly believes he does not deserve it. Oh my God, it's such good writing. Now I need to rewind it and actually listen to her.
Understanding what this choice costs Arthur. He is using his limited time, his dwindling energy, risking Dutch's wrath, all to undo damage he caused when he was a very different man. Every mile he rides to find them is a mile his failing body struggles to handle, but he does it anyway. And I felt so proud of Arthur in that moment because it showed him actively choosing redemption over comfort.
That's why they call it Red Dead Redemption. Oh, mind blow.
Could have just felt bad about what he did and moved on, but instead he put himself at risk in an attempt to undo the damage he'd caused. Then there's Charlotte Balfour, the widow that's struggling to survive alone in the wilderness. Arthur doesn't just happen upon her and leave, he deliberately takes time out of his increasingly precious days to teach her how to hunt, how to protect herself, how to live. There's no benefit to Arthur here, except
Oh, that's
the knowledge
nice.
that he's helping someone who needs it. He becomes this extremely gentle, patient, kind teacher. But again, consider what this costs him. Hours of his limited remaining time, energy his sick body desperately needs, all given freely to a stranger who can offer him nothing in return. But the one change that really gets me is how Arthur's relationship with John transforms after the diagnosis. Before, Arthur saw John as kind of an irresponsible kid who abandoned the gang for a year. But now, Arthur truly sees John as Jack's father, as Abigail's husband, as someone who still has a future worth fighting for. Arthur starts deliberately mentoring John, teaching him not just how to survive, but how to be a better man.
Oh,
Even
that's
if he doesn't realize
nice.
it. He pushes John to step up, to take
Really spreading the word that he probably should have listened to himself. It is important if you learned a lesson, though. Teach that lesson to other people before it's too late for them.
responsibility to become the leader that his family needs. And we already know why Arthur is so invested in John stepping up. Arthur knows what it costs when a man chooses his gang over his family. He's lived with that regret every day since the death of his son and since his relationship with Mary Linton, who we'll touch on in just a moment. But when
Ooh, we're
Arthur
getting to Mary,
pushes
guys.
John to be there for Jack, to be present, to choose his family over everything else, it's not just good advice. It's Arthur desperately trying to prevent John from making the same exact mistake that's haunted him for most of his life. At this point, Arthur also starts contributing more to the camp funds, not because he has to, but because he wants to make sure everyone is taken care of. He takes on the harder jobs, the more dangerous missions, because he knows his
That
time
makes
is
sense.
limited
I mean,
anyway. And
yeah, I'm about to say if you know you're going to be done, you're going to be done soon, and no matter what, might as well go out on top with everyone taken care of. If no one else is going to take those jobs, why should they if they got a longer life than you? Not that I believe this guy I'm looking at has a much longer life. There's no way he lives more than the next 5 years.
he might as well use it to protect the people who still have years ahead of them. What's so powerful about this transformation is that Arthur's heroism becomes completely intentional. He is not accidentally stumbling into good deeds, he's deliberately seeking out opportunities and choosing to use whatever time he has left to serve others. Every choice reveals not just an evolving moral compass, but a man who has finally discovered his purpose.
Oh, that guy's
Arthur
missing a leg.
doesn't
Hold on.
just reject the identity that was forced on him as a child. He actively chooses to build a new one. Instead of Dutch's enforcer, he becomes the camp's protector. Instead of taking orders, he becomes someone who takes accountability. Instead of being the gang's weapon, he becomes their provider. Not just by bringing in
Aww,
money,
he
but
became the dad he always wanted to be. Aww.
bringing in hope, stability, and care. Watch Arthur in those final months, and you see a man deliberately crafting a new identity for himself. He's not just drifting away from who he was, he's intentionally stepping into who he wants to be. When he mentors John, he's choosing to be a teacher. When he helps the Downs family, he's choosing to be a healer. When he protects Sadie and the other women in camp, he's choosing to be a guardian. It's like Arthur finally realizes that just because Dutch raised him to be lost and damned, it doesn't mean that he has to stay that way. He has the ability to rewrite his story, to craft a new story. And the story that he chooses to write is one of a man who shows up, a man who takes care of people, a man who uses his strength to build rather than to tear down. Arthur gives us a great example of what servant leadership looks like, using your strength to lift others up, making decisions based on what serves the people that you care about rather than what benefits you. He becomes a kind of shepherd
Yeah,
figure, naturally
I believe that's important in a lot of cultures. The taking care of the people you love over yourself, like the collective over you, which is a solid way to do it. But you definitely make sure you take care of yourself. But it feels like he doesn't believe in himself and he's already given up on himself. So he's just trying to leave the best parts of him, like the what he knows and what he's learned along the way, with other people so their lives are better before his wasted life is over. And that's honestly better than most people who do believe in themselves. Some people believe in themselves, unrightfully so, definitely do not deserve it, but they never pass anything on. They don't leave anything behind for anyone. He's a better man than most at this stage.
taking responsibility for others' well-being, not because he has to, but because he willingly chooses to care for them. Arthur also demonstrates incredible humility. He never acts like he's better than anyone. Even as he's becoming this new moral compass for the gang, he doesn't lord it over them or act like he is some kind of saint. He still sees himself as just Arthur. He still calls himself a bad man. He still doesn't think that he deserves the respect that people give him. There's zero ego.
To be fair, you can't come to terms with who you are and then completely change in that amount of time. It's incredibly difficult and rare. But like, he is a bad person. He is doing some good things now, but that doesn't change all the people he's hurt. And I don't know if he goes back and tries to make up for what he's done with any of those people. I know it's not really possible after so long, but he is a bad person. Just because he's doing good things now does not mean he is not a thief and a murderer.
Go. No self-righteousness. He just quietly does what he now knows is right. And he does what needs to be done, and he moves on. That humility makes his heroism so much more powerful because it makes it more genuine. He's not trying to be anyone's savior. He's just trying to be a better man. And with this growth of his character, you get to see how Rockstar nails the balancing of Arthur being tough and tender. When you really watch him and see how he develops over time, Arthur never once loses his strength when choosing compassion or kindness. In fact, his choices amplify it. He is still tough, still capable of incredible violence when necessary. But now, that toughness is guided by wisdom and compassion for others, rather than just survival instinct. He has finally learned the difference between righteous strength and reckless cruelty. Now, to touch on this transformation a little bit further, throughout your journey, Arthur has these dreams where he sees either a deer or a wolf. And at first, you might think it's just random imagery, but very quickly you realize it's not random at all. The deer represents everything Arthur could become: vulnerability, peace, gentleness, and there's something deeply intentional about this choice of animal. Take Psalm 42, for example. As a deer pants for flowing streams,
Probably because the wolf eats the deer. I assume just natural enemies.
so pants my soul for you, oh God. The deer represents how Arthur's soul is literally thirsting for something better than what he's been. This quiet, graceful creature embodies the man Arthur is slowly discovering he can be, even after everything that he's done. If you're focused on high honor choices throughout the game, you'll keep seeing this deer in Arthur's dreams.
Oh, it's
becomes
dependent
this
on your
reoccurring
honor.
reminder of the path that he's choosing. This visual confirmation that his soul is seeking something more, something pure and peaceful. And the more you lean into compassion and service, the more prominent this beautiful symbol becomes. Then there's the wolf.
That's Bambi's dad.
Aggressive, predatory, all about survival at any cost. That's the outlaw Arthur's always been. The weapon Dutch shaped him
Of
into.
course,
Raw,
the wolf has a
violent,
scar.
focused only on the pack and personal survival. Which animal you see depends entirely on the choices you've been making, but the game is constantly showing us this internal battle. It's not just a few scattered dreams, it's an ongoing visual representation of Arthur's subconscious, wrestling with who he wants to be versus who he has always been. This war inside Arthur, between the wolf and the deer, violence and peace, it isn't just symbolic. It's preparing us for the real test, because eventually every internal battle becomes external, and Arthur's final choice.
You will eventually have to come to terms with it. You can't just keep it inside. It will exacerbate to a point where it will boil over, and you're going to have to make a tough decision between the two things. And the right decision is going to feel harder, but it's absolutely necessary that you make the right one. It doesn't matter how easy the other decision is. It's going to lead you down a path where everything is going to feel much more difficult for you, and you're going to hate yourself for it as you go along. It's not going to feel that way immediately, maybe, but over time it will build up like damage over time. You put a spell on you, put a curse, shadow word pain from World of Warcraft. You throw that on you, it's going to do a lot of damage over time. That's why it's damage over time. It's not much now, but it will pick up, and it will add up, and it will just erode away at you until you realize how much danger you're in.
Isn't just about survival, it's about loyalty versus truth, family versus integrity, and most of all, whether he'll still choose to do good even when everything around him falls apart. And as we get closer to this point later in the game, we're also introduced to Mary Linton along the way. Arthur's one true
Ooh, that's a girl's name. Are we gonna get a maiden?
love, the woman who represents everything he could have been if he'd just chosen differently earlier on in his life. When Mary reaches out to him, asking for help with her family, Arthur doesn't hesitate. He drops everything to help her, even knowing it will reopen old wounds. In their final conversation together, Mary asks Arthur yet again to run away with her, to leave it all behind and start over. Arthur, the same man who's been questioning everything, who's been trying to change, looks at the woman that he loves and he says no. Not because he doesn't love her, not because he wouldn't want to spend the rest of his life with her, but because he loves her way too much to drag her down with him.
Is it too late for us, Arthur?
I can't lie to you. I want it, man, Mary. If anyone close to me, well, they wanted to, and I can't have you wrapped up in there.
When he says this, he truly means it. Arthur chooses to let her go because he knows that she deserves better than what he can give her. Sacrifice out of love truly is one of the most powerful acts that someone can commit. And Arthur shows
I'm
us
glad he was able to love somebody else, though. You don't want to go your whole life without opening yourself up to at least a couple people, preferably ending up with one that you love dearly and loves you back equally.
exactly what that can look like with this choice. He lets go of the person he loves most because staying would hurt her. Arthur has spent his whole life being selfish, but when it comes to Mary, he finally learns what it means to love someone more than yourself and to put their needs ahead of your own. This finally brings us to the moment where Arthur gets to the undeniable fork in the road, Dutch's descent into madness, and Arthur's impossible choice between loyalty and truth. We've known something was going on, that something was building. It's hard to miss Micah always whispering into Dutch's ear like Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings. Micah doesn't just poison Dutch's mind, he comes after Arthur with everything he's got. He spreads lies, sows doubt, tries to turn the entire gang against him. He questions Arthur's loyalty, his motives, tries to make it seem like Arthur's the problem. But here's what I love about Arthur. He doesn't fight fire with fire. He doesn't stoop to Micah's level. Arthur just keeps being...
Quick, I mean, you were raised to shoot bad people. He's clearly a very, very bad person. Get rid of him.
Arthur. He keeps doing what he knows is right. He keeps serving the people he cares about. He keeps telling the truth, even when lies would be easier. That integrity, that refusal to compromise who he's becoming just because someone is trying to tear him down, that's such a great example of real strength. Arthur could have played the politics. He could have fought back, fought dirty, but he chooses to stay true to the man he's trying to become, even when it costs him Dutch's trust, even when it makes his life harder. Dutch's fantastical plans continue to get worse and worse, and they cause so much more harm than good. And watching Dutch go from a father figure to a truly evil antagonist who ultimately betrays Arthur is one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever experienced in a game. Dutch was everything to Arthur. Mentor, father, the one who took him in, raised him, and became the architect of his entire identity and worldview. Slowly, very painfully, we watch pride and paranoia consume him until he becomes completely unrecognizable. And like I mentioned before, Dutch starts making decisions that hurt the very people he claims to be protecting. His grand speeches about helping the poor and fighting the system start sounding extremely empty and performative rather than principled. Arthur, who's now been questioning things for months, finally reaches his breaking point. Arthur's final chapters become this desperate race to save whatever can still be saved. He can't save Dutch.
He can. I'm sure he doesn't. But as much as he can do before he goes, that's more than most people can get done.
Dutch has chosen his path. He can't save the game. It's already broken beyond repair. But maybe he can save John, Abigail, and Jack. Maybe he can make sure that they get the chance at a normal life that he never had. Arthur pours everything he has left into that last mission. He gives John his hat, his satchel, his blessing. Arthur strips away everything that tied him to his old life and hands it over to someone who still has a future.
Ooh,
You're
ooh.
my brother. I know.
The final confrontation he has
I didn't feel like it was worth cutting to the cutscene for, but I assume it's important.
with Micah isn't about revenge, it's about protection. One last act of service, one final choice to put others before himself. And when he utters his last words to Dutch, he really means them.
I gave you all I had. I did.
Then comes that sunrise on Mount Hagen, with Arthur finally at peace, watching the light break over the mountains. After a lifetime of darkness, he finally gets to see the dawn.
Aww.
Arthur's story doesn't really end with his death. Because of who he became in those final months, his choices end up shaping those around him.
Is there like
for the rest of their lives.
after
John
story
is
stuff?
a changed man because of him. For a time, he starts to step up as a father, a husband, someone who protects instead of just survives. And it's not because Arthur gave him some grand speech. It's because Arthur lived it out as an example, quietly and consistently. That's the thing about real leadership. It leaves a mark and changes the people who experience it. It doesn't force itself, it demonstrates by example and inspires change. What makes Arthur a real leader and hero to the people around him, especially when you put him side by side with someone like Dutch, is that he stops
Dutch.
chasing the illusion. He starts telling the truth, even when it hurts. He cares. Not about the plan, not about
Yeah, even if it hurts, you should probably tell the truth. If it hurts them, that just means it was more important for you to tell the truth than it was for you to keep it in. Because it might seem easier, but it's going to be worse for everyone along the lines, especially the person that's going to hurt, because it'll just hurt even more when they find out the truth, and then they also find out that you were lying about it.
money or legacy, but about people. Dutch talks about being a leader, about having a vision, about changing the world, but Arthur just quietly serves. He doesn't need speeches or plans.
He lives
He
changing
just
the world.
shows up and he lets his actions do the talking. He's there, he's present, and there's something so powerful about that kind of leadership. The kind that does not demand to be followed, but inspires people to follow all on their own. The kind of leadership that doesn't seek its own glory, but it lifts up others. Arthur proves that it is never too late to become who you are supposed to be, and that forgiveness and choosing to do better are possible for anyone. His heroism isn't about
That's very true, too. It's not too late. You might just have to take a different route than you initially planned to get there, but you can always do right by other people, even if you can't do right by the person that you harmed. And if you're just looking to make the world a better place, every small decision you make to make someone else's life better is one more drop in the ocean of kindness and happiness. And it may not seem like a lot, but drops add up. Drops will get there. You can fill a bucket with a drop of water at a time.
being fearless. It's about faithful love in action. It's about moral courage, the strength to change when change is hard, the willingness to serve rather than to be served. It's found in ordinary moments of choosing others over yourself, the daily decisions that reveal who you are when no one is watching. And maybe that's why his story hits me so hard, because it didn't just make me admire him, it made me reflect on some of my own choices, on what type of person I am, and the kind of impact I'm leaving behind in my own life. When no one is watching, who am I choosing to be? When it's easier to walk away, do I stay? When it costs me something to help someone else, do I help anyway? Arthur's story reminds me that we're all broken people, but that doesn't mean that we have to stay that way. There's something so beautiful about watching a man who thought he was beyond redemption discover that maybe, just maybe, he was wrong about himself all along. The truth really can set.
It's nice to believe that everyone can have redemption, but I don't believe everyone can. There's a lot of people who are just so stubbornly stuck in their ways that I don't think that they'll ever actually learn a lesson. I mean, it'd be nice. I would much prefer someone learn on their own before someone else comes along and forces them to learn it, because that's going to be a lot worse for them, and that it could potentially make it worse, like their whole condition of stubbornness and refusal to change, because they'll just retreat into themselves and become even more defensive. And I wish everyone had the ability to change, but there's just people out there who will refuse to admit that they're wrong or that they need it, and not everyone can.
Set you free, even when that truth is painful, even when it costs you everything you thought you wanted. Arthur Morgan reminds me why I love stories that understand what heroism actually is. He showed me that the most powerful transformations happen not in grand gestures, but in the quiet daily choice to be better than you were yesterday. Real change happens in the small moments, in the choice to tell the truth when lying would be easier, in the decision to give when you could take, in the courage to love when you could just walk away. His story confirms that redemption isn't just possible, it's available to anyone willing to stop making excuses and start making different choices. And sometimes that's the most heroic thing you can do. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply choosing to be different than you were. In the end, Arthur Morgan became the man he was always meant to be. Not Dutch's weapon, not society's outcast, but a protector, a father figure, a friend. Someone who chose love over fear.
And you can always be a weapon for good, if nothing else. If you don't think you have anything else, use the skills you learned being a bad person to apply to being a good person. Not all of them will transfer, but at least some of them, I'm sure, will get you where you need to go, where you can help somebody else.
Truth over comfort, others over himself. Someone who understood that real strength isn't about what you can take, it's about what you're willing to give. You really are a good man, Arthur Morgan. And thank you for showing me what that looks like.
This has made me excited to play this game. I'm super stoked now.
So, if you've made it to the end of this video, I know this one was a little bit different. Thank you for going on this pretty emotional journey with me. And I know I couldn't cover everything about our favorite cowboy here, but what is a moment in Arthur's journey that hit you the hardest? Or maybe a time when you've seen that kind of quiet heroism in real life? Please drop it in the comments, because honestly, I would love to cry over your stories too.
Chances are you probably don't remember a lot of the quiet kindness because it was quiet. And it's easy to forget within like a week that someone did that nice, small, nice thing for you. They don't really get stories told about them. But if you can, try to, when someone does something like extremely kind, or even small and kind, try to tell that story to people. Pass on the goodness that's in the world to other people who might need to hear that there's some goodness in the world still, because not everybody remembers it, and it's easy to forget with all the bad stuff that goes on. So the more stories of good people in our lives that we can tell to other people, the more hope we can put into the world.
Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one.
Well, that was Background NPC. As you all know, this is the third video in a row we've watched. I'm going to give her a like and sub. Let's check out some of the comments, though. I saw this comment years ago. May this game inspire you to finish your life on a higher... Ooh, that's pretty good. That's some pretty good advice. I'm a simple man. I need Arthur Morgan. I watch. But it was proof that you would have blown up a content... Yep, true. This video triggered me to tell my chat why I love Yuna from Final Fantasy X so much. So thank you for reminding me of someone who stuck with... Thank you for... giving me a reason to rant about my character that stuck with me. The way Morgan did for you, and I'm excited to finally play this game. soon. Maybe soon. Maybe soon. Game this year. And we'll do this year. I forgot how to spell Arthur. Oh, it's right there. Arthur. Okay. That's a lot easier. I'd rather use Arthur than Morgan because that sounds kind of weird. All right, let me know down below what character or game like really stuck with you after you finished playing the game. Like even if you didn't finish it, but you played enough of it, and then whatever happened that made you stop playing it. What was it? Who was it? What game or movie or anime or whatever it was from? And what was it about them that really left their mark? Maybe they taught you a life lesson. They pointed out something in themselves that you realize was a thing that's wrong with you that you couldn't quite pinpoint. Whatever it was, I would love to hear about it. I would also love to cry over your stories. I mean, I don't cry very much, but I will get teary-eyed and a little weepy. I'll let it all whimper for you. But still, I would love to hear your stories. It's important to pass on our stories. So this is the Background NPC. Give her a like and sub. Give me a like and sub if you like this reaction video. It was 55 minutes on a 32-minute video. Hopefully that was enough additions for you. And I hope you don't mind me going on that small rant about Yuna. It's hard for me to articulate what I mean sometimes, but I hope it came across like how I felt. I'll catch you guys later. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and like I always say, this video is a very good reason why I always say this when I'm ending my stream or a YouTube video. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Firm believer, and I always will be. Love and nachos, babies. Mwah.